Virgin Words on Marriage.
And listen, guys, check out our new website, www.marriagevantagepoint.com. And remember, you are the MVP in your marriage.
From this moment. Good afternoon, Omega Radio listeners. Coming to you now are the voices of Carim and Michelle Hyatt, your host for this segment of Marriage in a Minute. We ask that you go ahead and get locked in and get settled in, as you'll be hearing Marriage in a Minute here today on Omega Radio.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle and Carim. It is Saturday at 3:30, and we are in studio, and obviously so grateful, happy to be here another Saturday just to chat with y'all, sweet chat with y'all about some important stuff, right? Anyway,
in
say
Jamaica,
something.
in Jamaica, when you use that word chat, it's not a good thing.
That's true. That is true. Isn't it so funny how culture plays a part of how you speak and what means what around the world, right? People say you chat too much or whatever. Yeah, but a chat is just a chat. So anyway, so it is Saturday. It is 3:30, and of course I've got my husband. He just said one quick thing, and then I have no idea what he's doing right now. And no, and we're here, and we're grateful.
I'm distracting her.
Yeah, he is. You could tell. You can tell. But anyway, last Saturday we talked about in-laws, and we're here to talk about it again. And if we've got to get that part right, and just talk about how sometimes in-laws got such a bad rap, right? And sometimes we in-laws get a bad rap, and I think I was saying, man, I'm an in-law, and you're an in-law. So depending, what kind of in-law are you? You know, are you supportive of the marriage, or are you, just trying to be sticking yourselves into places where you don't belong? So sometimes in-laws have such a negative impact on a marriage, and of course it can have a very positive, wonderful impact on whether it's a new marriage or a marriage that's been around for a few years. But it just does, when you hear the word in-laws, it's almost like, oh gosh.
Yeah, nowadays it's like whenever you hear that
and
word,
I don't even think it's nowadays. I think it's just
it's
it
always been
is.
like
It
that.
came from a place where obviously it wasn't a good place.
So in-laws get a bad rap, usually. That's what you're
I don't
saying.
know if deservingly so or
no,
not.
but the thing is,
know.
it's not necessarily so.
It's not necessarily so.
They can help a lot, but I'm just saying that usually that's the way we look at in-laws in a negative way, when we should be looking at it in a positive way. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And in-laws can be a help. Remember, we talked about that last week when we're like, so your in-laws are available to keep the kids. And we're like, well, it's their grandkids. They should want it. Nope. They're still your in-laws. So you can't be so happy when you get a favor, but then you lament if they say something else. So, it's really that kind of a balance. But yeah, in-laws get a really, really bad rap.
And we're not saying that there aren't in-laws out there who don't just probably
How's your mother-in-law?
out of ignorance, they don't
No, kidding.
give you the space in your marriage
Yeah.
to grow, because there's some like that too. But what we're really saying is that that's not always the case.
Well, what about, there are people that are married who your mother-in-law your mother-in-law lives at the house with you.
Yeah, and you could live at the house, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna
Just
be
don't come out of the room.
It doesn't mean you're gonna be in the marriage that way.
Yeah.
You're not a part of the one flesh
Yeah.
movement. Put it that
Yeah.
way.
But can be a very helpful part of a
Exactly.
family,
Yeah.
and provides, whether it's care or, a very good friend of mine, her mom lives with them, and, whether it's babysitting or just making dinner or just keeping the household that when they get home from work, things aren't so, like really hectic, and helping with homework and doing all those things. So, I mean, there are times when your mother-in-law lives with you, or your parents, both parents-in-law live with you, and turns out to be a great impact on the grandkids because I don't know. Sometimes I hear, especially in this country where grandparents aren't looked at as looked at very well. But in where we're from, right, in Jamaica, grandparents and all over the world,
culture makes it different because
yeah,
I grew up in a family where I saw my uncles, they're married, and of course their parents, my grandparents, are living in the same house, and they help out a lot. But what we're really saying is the temperature of let me say the extent of how they get involved in your marriage relationship is the part that we're talking about.
Yeah.
How far do you go? What boundaries are set?
Right. Healthy boundaries,
Right.
man. That's so important. Setting healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And so today we're talking about, so think about this for a minute. Let this sit. Let me know how this settles with you. So think about a marriage that two people, they've been married for, say, 15, 20 years, and that marriage ends. But during that marriage, they forged great relationships with, their mother-in-law, sisters, brothers, and they're a part of this family. And now that spouse they're divorced and have moved on. And now you're still referring to that old person as your sister-in-law or your brother-in-law. Now, how does that give this new spouse
Yeah.
like
how does that work? How does that?
That's pretty
that's
hard.
that's
I would say
one.
that's a tough one.
But there's a way. Definitely is a way to deal with it, to have peace, to have a great relationship still.
Yeah.
So
and here
it's,
and it's I think I can say this, that I won't even use that, but my aunt and uncle were married for a very long time, and I used to call him uncle, and he's been a part of our family for a very long time, and traditions built barbecues at his house, at their house, every year. And now, like, they're not together anymore. Well, not now, it's been a very long time, but like, I still say uncle because, it's still my uncle, and all the cousins still say uncle. So just imagine for this new person coming into our family, the newest of uncles, because now he's married to my aunt, like, and he's hearing about that old uncle. Like, I wonder how it impacts him. But I think, there's a level of, like, you've got to put up with, I'm at a loss for the word, but tolerance.
That's the key word. Tolerance.
Tolerance.
And wisdom.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So here's what we're saying. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
We want to hear your comments.
And if you're in that situation, how are you
dealing
managing?
With that? You have an in-law who you have to deal with, where it's a new spouse in the marriage.
But the old spouse has been there for
has
20 years or so.
Yeah, these things are real things that happen.
Yeah. Like,
we're not promoting divorce or anything, but we're
no,
saying,
just
we're
like,
just
how do
being
you
real.
handle the aftermath of the
Yes.
family? Because now that these two people are divorced, that family unit and the relationships are still in place.
Right.
Because you still love, but how do you, give that new spouse a chance coming into, and especially for women, you're still walking around saying, that's my sister-in-law. But it used to be your sister-in-law, but you just don't break off that friendship and that relationship. But that old in-law, you've got to respect the new.
Yeah.
That person is not going to be your best friend walking into this new marriage, but you still have to give way. So,
You
to
still have to have a relationship.
Yeah.
You still have to have a healthy relationship with the in-laws. So, you know, if you want to comment, make a comment or a question, whatever it is on this topic, you know, how would you deal with that as a husband and wife with this situation, or even a situation where, you know, you have kids from another marriage that's in this new marriage now.
Yeah,
You know,
step and
sometimes it
four
creates
different parents at this point
Right.
and kids and so many voices. And what we were talking about earlier is this is the time where you communicate like
Yeah.
tons of conversations must be had, you know, in terms of just how you're feeling and what your expectation is and the different moving parts that's pretty much you're exposed to now. Like I said, different parents, different kids.
Yeah, because you want the ultimate thing is that you have peace and you have great relationships, regardless of, you know, how it navigated in the beginning, where you may have had a separation or a divorce, and then a new spouse is here with their kids, and then you have kids from your old marriage, and all four husband, wife, and the old wife. Well, I don't want to say the old wife, but the previous wife
Please,
or
yes, change that. No old wife.
the previous wife or husband with, you know,
Yeah, it's
intermingling with in
just
terms of the
everything.
kids
It's really
in the picture. You know, it creates a challenge
Yeah.
for sure. You can't avoid that. But how do you deal with that to have a great marriage, first of all, but also how do you deal with it to have a great relationship with the in-laws and the other
families.
father and mother of the kids?
Yeah.
How do you do that? We're going to talk about that, you know, in our future broadcast.
Yeah, step and
ways how we could do it,
co-parenting
but we
and
want you
all
guys
that.
to think about it.
Yeah. So we got a lot of feedback about in-laws, and we know, and we don't want to tear anyone down. Like, we don't know the circumstances. Like, we've got great relationship between us with our mother-in-laws and cousin-in-laws and sister-in-law, brother-in-law.
Yeah.
You know, so we really and I think one thing where we were very what's the word I'm looking for? We were very focused on presenting each other
Yeah.
as the most important person in our lives and presenting each other not as secondary.
And that's the key thing.
Yeah.
You have to present each other as number one to your in-laws, because to your parents, to your sister,
your brothers
brother,
and sisters,
you know, to let them know up front. And that's one of the things that we're going
Right.
to expand on.
Purposeful is the word I was looking for. I
Oh,
knew it would
okay.
come. I think
Yeah.
I thought it would come later tonight, but
Yeah. But the other word was good too.
focused. Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
So it's very important that it's like if you're going on a job and people don't know you put up a great resume. So when you're introducing your spouse to your parents and your family, you've got to bring the best resume. You talk the best about. You don't introduce your new spouse or spouse to be as like secondary, like you don't really care much. We're just getting married. We've been together long enough, and we're just, you know, if you're excited and it's wonderful and it's this big great thing in your life, I think you've got to sell that person as that thing so that your family will know to respect.
Yeah, your wife
your
is your
spouse
your
or
wife
your
is
husband.
your rib. Your wife is your rib.
Barbecue rib.
Your husband is your sidekick, so to speak. So why would you not want to, you know, talk good and let them know that this is my priority, this is my you know, a part of my flesh, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because if you do any other than that, you're already putting them in a place of giving your parents or sister or brother, you're giving them ammunition to use against, and it's going to affect your marriage.
Yeah.
So,
and like last week, I think you brought up that was a good point about your parents will say, hey, why do you and your spouse have you know, the same bank account? Your dad and I have always had different separate bank accounts, and it worked for us. So now you're going home introducing that this is what my parents do, and I think we should do that too.
The tradition.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
traditions or
yeah.
whatever. And
Every marriage is unique. Every relationship is unique. As long as it's following the word of God, as far as the practical part of it, every marriage is unique.
yeah,
Every married couple has the way they deal with things differently. So it doesn't mean that it's wrong, it's just different. So, of course, one couple may feel like, well, for us, it works where we have two separate bank accounts. Michelle and I, we think it's best to have one bank account because it's part of our oneness where we communicate, everything that we do together with finances. We think it creates, and I've seen it. It creates
yep.
more oneness, more wholesomeness,
It's
as
being on the
opposed
same
to
page.
being on the same page. But if another couple thinks that it's good for them to do it
I
separate,
still think you need to use one bank
yeah,
account.
we do. We definitely do. I don't see how.
Yeah,
I can't
I
see
can't
how
see how.
two separate bank accounts.
Yeah,
Is
it's
gonna,
like a division.
What's the sense? Then?
Your vision and her
But-
vision.
But what we're saying is that if Misha and I, and then Tyler, our son, marries later on,
When he marries,
you know,
'cause
when
I'm
he
going
marries,
to a
yes.
wedding.
when he gets married later on,
Yeah.
and his wife is coming from a family where they did things differently, they wouldn't have a right to tell their daughter, this is how you're supposed to do it with your marriage because this
Yeah.
is how we did it. Or Tyler can't
Yeah.
tell, So,
So the
wha-
voices of the in-laws are
In-laws.
affecting the next generation. So I
exactly.
think one thing how
Sorry, they
Go
they
ahead.
could give suggestions,
Yeah.
which is fine, but the ultimate
must
decision
be
has to be
yours.
from your husband and wife.
Yeah. And I think one thing about in-laws, I think healthy discussions, number one, about setting healthy boundaries around your relationship. Because if you don't put borders around your relationships, it's like when you go to bed at night, you've got certain rules where you lock up and you turn out the lights and you make sure everyone's down and then you go to bed. Whatever it is that you do in your home, you've got to put up some boundaries. You lock up, you make sure the cars are locked, the doors are locked, the lights are off. So I think it's the same thing around your marriage with your in-laws.
Yeah.
You protect home base.
You gotta put up shutters. Put it that way. A hurricane is threatening. You put up shutters to avoid, your home becoming a disaster, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you can't stop the hurricane from coming. You can't stop the in-laws being a part of the relationship. You can't stop that because there's no marriage without in-laws. But
sure.
you got to put up shutters or boundaries or whatever the word
Yeah.
is to not allow it to destroy your marriage. Put it that way.
And sometimes in-laws, it's not from a place of disrespect.
Right.
They can be overzealous because of their love for you or their love for their son and
the
daughter.
intention.
Yeah, and then it seems like it pushes over onto the relationship. And I just want to say that because I know my mom, she's not pushy, but out of, I think, love for me and my husband too, sometimes she'll push and you should do this, you should do that, whatever. And sometimes we've just got to take a deep breath and go,
Yeah, sometimes
yeah,
you
so
know.
it's not from a
Sometimes
bad
we
place.
perceive it initially. We perceive
Right,
it as
right.
something that is negative or a bad intention that she has or the in-law
Yeah.
has. But sometimes when you step back and think about it, they just mean good.
Yeah,
Sometimes they unintentionally may, pass the boundary,
yeah,
but it doesn't mean that they mean your marriage bad.
right.
That's the thing. So
And then you have to be sure that whatever, sometimes it really is our fault how much we allow our in-laws in because
yeah,
it's because of what we say, what we carry to them.
exactly.
And
That too.
again, they love us more than the other person,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because your mom, she loves me, but you are her son.
Yeah.
My mom loves me, but I am her daughter. So if I bring something to my mother or he brings something to his mom in a skewed way because we're being subjective about our issues, then they will respond. They probably won't come down and kill us, but they will respond in a way supportive
It's
of
a natural bent.
yeah,
Put it
to
that way.
yeah, just be supportive of your son or your daughter, but not in a way to rip the relationship apart.
Yeah.
So I think that's one key thing that you've got to keep in mind, that whatever you say, your parent might have, if you go to your parents like, oh, we just sold this house, or if you're a realtor, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up as I go, I sold this house, or I got this money, or whatever. They are going to say to you, do you know what I think you need to do with this money?
Right. And they don't mean bad.
And your spouse might be like, why are they telling you what to do?
Right.
You said it.
We're being practical.
Yeah.
So what we're saying in essence is it comes down to you and your spouse. It's come down to me and Michelle, to not go with what they're saying if we don't think it's a good idea for us, or to go with it because we're saying, you know what, that's a great idea that they brought up. So the bottom line is that in-laws don't usually mean anything bad.
Sometimes,
once in a while you might find some who.
And here's the thing.
reason.
And here's the thing. Sorry. Here's the thing. We know. So we're not just one-sided. So we know there are some relationships where you're probably saying, "Oh no, you don't know my mother-in-law."
Right. True.
This woman is from hell, or this man, or whatever. and I say that very loosely, please. Okay. So you might say that, and I understand that I've heard of relationships where, the parents just flat out was not in support of the marriage. So they do nothing to support the marriage. Yeah. And we understand that, maybe if you're going through, a season or a lifetime of unsupportive in-laws, or they just tear you down because no other woman in their family works or perm their hair or wear heels, or, you've got that kind of situation where, maybe your husband decides, he wants to be a lifeguard. And they're like, that can't pay the bills. What are you doing to my daughter? And, there's so many other factors, that's negative, that's involved. And your parents nudge and, hurt out of love for you. But I think that's the point when you've got to go to your parents and say, you are not loving me because you're really hurting me. Hurting my spouse is really hurting me, and it's hurting our marriage.
That is true. That is so true. So basically, it's two-way. The in-law has to think about how far to go. The spouse has to think about how far to allow the in-law to go.
Your tolerant level.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think we all have tolerant level where we'll put up with a little something, right? But you can't let it, you can't let the door open at all, actually, and it doesn't even matter if your parents are the ones that are not, that are really pulling your marriage apart. Yeah. But in the end, we're at the end. So we pray for those who are having hardship from in-laws, or you feel like it's ripping your marriage apart. Go to our website for, we've got resources for any marriage. It doesn't matter what the issue is. So
it's www.marriagevantagepoint.com. There are so many different resources on that website you could get, even for this topic. So check it out, www.marriagevantagepoint.com. And also check our YouTube channel, Marriage in a Minute. All right, guys. So join us next Saturday at 3:30 p.m. on Omega Radio Broadcasting Network for Marriage in a Minute. Have a great day.
All right, Omega listeners, you were just tuned into Marriage in a Minute here today. We do hope that you enjoyed today's segment and that you will tune in next week, Saturday, at the same time on the same station. And we would like to say a special thank you to the Hyatts for being a proud sponsor towards his radio ministry.
From this moment.
Hey, radio listeners, this is Michelle Hyatt.
And this is Carim Hyatt,
host of Marriage in a Minute. Tune in every Saturday at 3:30 p.m. right here on Omega Radio Broadcasting Network for encouraging words on marriage.
And listen, guys, check out our new website, www.marriagevantagepoint.com. And remember, you are the MVP in your marriage.
From this moment, Jesus, you are my deliverance.
Do you need clarity, healing, and deliverance? Then come to Omega Church UK every Wednesday for your PhD, Prophetic Healing and Deliverance at the Clock Tower Bulwell, NG68HA. Come get deliverance and the word from our anointed men and women of God, Pastor Joshua Stewart,